Learn, experiment, achieve, and take off. We're anthropologists and social scientists who put leaders under the microscope. We are your eyes and ears to dig up the most valuable insights for success to help make you and your business better. We give you the tools to lead your future and help build leaders we all want to look up to. So, rise to your potential. Launch. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Bennett, your host. Welcome back to the pod. Today we'll be discussing how to lead through uncertain times through the lens of the 2020 COVID pandemic. Businesses and employees are having to pivot and adapt quickly because their livelihood depends on it. Never before have we seen society change so fast and move together in one direction. So far, we have seen many businesses go bankrupt and shut down, while others have created new offerings. It's fascinating to study why some businesses go one way while others go the other. But just because you have to shut your operations down doesn't mean it's the end. It's a new beginning for many. But how do you get there? How do you lead through such a devastating time? How do you set that new vision, that new future? And what will the future of work be like? In this episode, we explore those questions so that our launch listeners can find that new beginning for your businesses. On this episode, I handpicked 4 leaders who have demonstrated great leadership qualities during these uncertain times and have successfully come up with a plan and pivoted their organizations in response. So today you will be hearing from Aaron Beck, CEO of Wana Family Networks, Afifa Siddiqui, CEO of Canadian Payroll Services, Elena Agaragimova, Managing Partner of Besern, as well as Sean Bishelia, CEO of Kirion, all of whom have been featured in previous episodes. At launch, our mission is to bring in leaders we believe in and demonstrate great qualities of leadership that you can be inspired by and learn from. These 4 leaders have shown bravery, resiliency, and strong leadership, something we could all use more of right now. And with that, let's turn to Aaron Beck's COVID leadership story first. As a refresher, we had CEO of Wana Family Networks, Aaron Beck, on a previous podcast. She and I met at the International Business Accelerator at USC back in the fall of 2019, while we were looking for global opportunities for our businesses. Wana Family Networks is a babysitting co-op startup that operates globally. And Aaron was one of the first businesses to successfully pivot at the onset of the global pandemic and demonstrate admirable leadership qualities in the process. So let's take a look at her journey and how she overcame the COVID challenge. Welcome back, Aaron.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
So let's talk about where you were pre-COVID. What did business look like then? And then we'll go into how you responded to COVID and after the fact.
Sure. So when COVID started, we had enjoyed a very consistent year of organic user growth, both on the new user side and on the traction side. We were seeing new groups of parents coming together every week to form their babysitting co-ops where they exchanged their care for free. And we were just launching our first point purchase programs where we were allowing those parents who had run out of points to purchase affordable care hours back into the system. And we were launching our first point cash in campaigns where families who had volunteered a large amount of their time were offered ways to redeem their points for fun, family-focused, kid-forward rewards. So we were partnering with small parent and women-owned businesses to get these really neat, curated products out to families as a thank you for their volunteered time. These are programs that we had had on our mind for quite some time, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to really get those launched. That had just happened when the first lockdowns were happening for COVID. And when the first lockdowns were announced, we saw a surge through the platform. of new families coming in to say, I need care because my school has shut down. What can we do to facilitate this? And, of course, it's these incredible parents who are self-organizing to solve what has become a very big problem. But on our side, we also saw another risk, which is that states were issuing stay-at-home orders and shelter-in-place orders. And we felt that it was very important that we let families know that use of our platform was not in accordance with what states were asking so many of us to do. And we actually asked families to stop swapping care,
Mhm.
and they did. Um,
It must have been a really hard decision to make.
that was a hard decision to make. And it wasn't because there was a fear of loss of success or loss of traction within the business, because I didn't have any doubt that cooperative, free, and affordable care was something that families would need coming out on the other side of COVID. But it was more understanding that in the position we were, serving tens of thousands of families, we had a responsibility to be the best stewards for them that we could. And it was so clear how many of those families were struggling and suffering with the threats of job loss, with the stresses of suddenly having a full household. And they needed care, but it wasn't the time.
Mhm.
And making that sort of call to ask parents, no, really, please stay home, was a gut wrenching decision.
Mhm.
But the remarkable thing that came out of that was, by being able to, we made that decision, we had that email out before the lockdowns had come out in most states. And within a couple of days, they had really settled across a majority of states. But we were out the gate really early with that. What that allowed us to do was to sit back as a team and take a pause and say, okay, we've asked everyone to stop for the time being. What do we offer in exchange? How do we fix this problem? Now that we know that what we offer right now isn't the solution, so what do we need to offer instead? And so within the next couple of days, we released new programs. And for the families at home, we talked about digital care breaks and digital play dates to keep kids socialized, and to give parents half an hour to take a phone call or take a shower or do the dishes while another parent read their kid a book over FaceTime. And we introduced insulated care circles for essential workers, because it turns out that a closed babysitting circle is an ideal insulated care network, because you are creating a pod. And we all know about this now, but we didn't know about it at the time. You create a pod of families where you contain potential exposures within that pod. And
Mhm.
when you do that for a workplace where you already have families who are going to work and sharing exposures in the workplace, or parents who are going to work, if you can take those same relationships from the workplace and bring them home, then you are keeping potential exposures again within that pod between the household and the workplace.
Mhm.
And we started serving these opportunities to healthcare centers and to universities. And we started bringing in volunteer parents who were not part of the essential worker force, but who were willing to volunteer to help those families. We were able to release those programs extremely quickly and efficiently because we made a firm decision to stop and take a pause.
Mhm.
So as terrifying as it was to have to make that kind of top level decision so quickly, it really ended up being a long-term benefit. Once we had those programs ready and could explain, these are the ways that you can use cooperative care in a successful way through COVID, then those programs began to grow organically. And so we've now rolled out to employers that represent 80,000 or more faculty and staff. We have a number. I don't think I'm going to be able to count them as quickly in my head, but we have a number of employers in the pipeline right now that we're looking to roll out within the next couple of months. And we've largely shifted our direct consumer focus to direct to business focus, where we're helping employers get the programs in place that can help their working parents be able to come back to work, to be able to handle the now remote for many people 2020 school year.
Mhm.
So it's really an incredible blessing to be in a position where we have a part to play. Because when you're in a situation like a global pandemic, what does everyone want? They want to help. They want to find a way to participate and to do something that has meaning. And we're very fortunate, I feel, that we have this small piece that we can play to be a part of getting parents relief from the new childcare burdens that they're carrying in their everyday life now.
Mhm. Yeah, what a way to pivot. I can imagine to be able, as a leader, to have the courage to essentially pull the plug on something you've worked so hard to build without yet knowing what you're going to do next is extremely courageous. But you knew it was the right thing to do. And then you use the opportunity of your team, which was now freed up, to develop those opportunities and have the trust and faith in them to come up with those quickly and deploy those new programs. So that's the first quality that I wanted to point out to our audience of an example of how a leader can be courageous and even in hard times still make those right decisions and having faith in their team to keep pushing the company forward. So, Erin, we spoke about how you responded to COVID with your customers, and I've also seen quite a few communications come from you to them. I think communication is so important in a time of crisis like this. And so, if you could just share with our audience, what are some of the type of communications that you issue? What are the things that you address with the customers?
We put a strong emphasis in one-to-one communication with families after COVID started. And again, this was something that we had wanted to do for a long time, but had not yet. And it simply felt like now was exactly the right time to do so. So every new family that joins the COME cooperative care platform gets an invitation to speak to a member of our team. And everyone who accepts that invitation, we do regular follow-ups with them so that we can hear truly what their childcare journey is like right now and help them in a customized way to fill those gaps. It not only helps that one individual family, but learning those experiences helps us to accommodate many of the families who may be struggling through the same sorts of issues. We also did increase our social media and blogging content, but I think the most important part is increasing that one-to-one touch point. And even when you're serving, or we said we had something like 25,000 plus families right now on the Wanna Family Network platforms. Um, Even at that sort of scale, finding the way to have that one-on-one touch point gives your company a human element that it may otherwise be lacking. And in times of crisis, understanding and sympathizing with that human element may be the most important thing that you do.
Mhm. So yeah, empathizing is certainly something that I'm hearing from a lot of the leaders when we talk about how they've been responding with COVID. I want to shift gears and talk about how you've responded to your employees or workers with COVID.
That's a great question. And that also was one of the hardest parts of navigating the early parts of the United States lockdown. So we have staff from coast to coast in the United States and also in the UK. So we were trying to run a company of all of these remote workers who were experiencing very different realities in terms of COVID, what their local governments were doing, what they were actually seeing in terms of case density in their areas. And there was no one size fits all approach. Though, as a company, in some ways, you do have to have some one size must fit all directives that the company needs to abide by. One of the things that we did early on was require that all employees that were doing want to work did so at home. And again, that was in honoring the shelter in place orders. Even when we had some staff that were in areas that were not yet under full lockdown orders, we did shut down our offices and ask people to move home. That was something we made as a unilateral decision. That was not popular across the entire company. And again, that was one of those where it was clear that some of the decisions that needed to be made were going to cause personal difficulties for some people. How did we as a company need to react to alleviate that? So we did a number of things. We sent everyone on the team a Facebook portal. If you guys haven't tried Facebook portal yet, this is a fantastic work tool because you can sit it up on the corner of your desk and it can just sit there on all day. And you can pretend like you are actually in an office with your coworkers, just like you used to be. And not only was it great to sit and pretend like we were working together in an office, which was very fun since we don't generally live in the same place anyway, but our kids loved it. So when I was getting a phone call, I didn't know if the phone call was coming from my chief developer or if the phone call was coming from my chief developer's 7-year-old son calling for my 4-year-old daughter so that they could play Facebook games together. And then I heard that they were using them to have family game nights where they would call the grandparents in on the portal. And so it ended up being a really wonderful tool for everyone to have to use. We also made better use of our team counselor. We have one member of the team who's an advisor whose primary role on the team is to be the counselor. He's an executive coach by trade, and he provides personal and professional development counseling for everyone. It doesn't matter if you are the social media intern or you are the CEO. He works with everybody. And it's like this confidential bubble you can come into and say all of the things that are on your mind without having to have any of the answers right then. Mm-hmm. And yet somehow he manages to ask you the questions that get you to the answers by the end of your discussion with him. But it allowed everyone to feel like they had an outlet for ways that they could say, these are the things I'm struggling with, either professionally or personally, and this is how the company can help me resolve those. That was able to filter back up to me and allow me to make responsive decisions without anybody having to feel like they're going and complaining to their boss or something along those lines. So his name is Rob. And now people say, oh, I need a Rob. And I would agree. Everyone needs a Rob. Taking care of the mental health of your people. There's nothing more important than that, especially in times like this. Mm-hmm. And we saw that with everybody. Every member of the team had an entirely unique, highly personalized response to COVID. And that's going to be the same whether it's a company or it's your own family members or it's your friends. Everyone is going through something very different, and it's deeply, deeply personal. Mm-hmm. And as a business owner, you're used to judging people on their performance. Do they show up on time, and how responsive are they, and what's their work product like? And you know what, right now, for many months, none of us were on top of our game. We were just trying to get through the day. And we intentionally hire parents at WANA. That's something that we focus very highly on. And now we had all of these parents with kids at home that couldn't work, mm-hmm. that were sad, that were angry. And we went quite a long time just having to have grace for ourselves, to have mercy on each other. And as a business owner, that can be hard because you see the bank account draining and you know that you have to get the best throughput from your team, but it's also a long game. And I would rather have somebody work part-time or less than part-time at their full pay for several months during a pandemic and be fine with that, and then have them come back at full strength when it's done, mm-hmm. and have retained that talent, that loyalty, that energy, that skill, that knowledge. To me, as a business owner, that is completely worth it. Mm-hmm. And I've been very fortunate that my team has shown the same grace and mercy towards me as I, as a parent, have struggled through what it means to be a CEO and to balance the needs of your family at the same time.
Mhm.
So I am grateful that those feelings have been reciprocated.
So we talked about responding to COVID in terms of your customers and employees. I'd like to talk about how you responded with your investors. I'm sure that everyone got scared. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with my investment? How did you respond to them, and what did that result look like?
I did not do as well with that as I would have liked to. I feel like I went into a hole for 2 months just trying to get through each day and really didn't communicate with anybody now that you ask this question. And no one bothered me about it. So maybe they were all doing the same thing. We have a very practical tool that everyone's going to be familiar with, but I do think we use it in a way that's slightly different. Our Slack channel. So we have maybe 10 people on staff. We have 160 people on our Slack channel, including all of our investors. And there's a couple ways that we reach them there. We do all of our investor updates through our Slack, but we also have public channels that we just post our company updates and the things that we're doing. And it's a very quick and easy way for me to keep everybody within the Wana Family Network ecosystem updated at the same time. And so we made excellent use of Slack. And every time a new article came out, or every time we had a new business plan come out, it would show up in the Slack channel, and people were able to get at least some updates of what was going on through there. And within the last month, I think I've really caught up and have been able to provide my regular data reporting and my regular asks and my regular updates. But no, we have just such an incredible team of investors. And I think they were just watching and observing and staying clear as much as possible, except for when we reached out and asked for help. I have to give an absolute shout out to Jumpstart in Ohio. Heather Hall from Jumpstart has become a very important advisor of ours, and she was instrumental in working with us one-on-one to put together our now business-to-business Kome corporate strategy. And it's an example of one of our investors coming forward and saying, hey, what do you guys need right now? So we could really use some experience in this. And she said, oh yeah, I know how to do that, and got right in the trenches in there with us and helped turn that into something that is a beautiful product I'm incredibly proud of. Her and Amy and Lyndon, who I hope everyone gets the chance to meet, were really the ones that got that set up. So we were at the beginning of a raise when COVID started. And we talked in the podcast, if you guys get a chance to go back and listen to that, about how we often do a lot of family and friends raising. And I will say that during COVID, family and friends raising, not rapid. That became a very challenging means to fundraise, because so many private investors really have gotten very quiet during this time to make sure that they're protecting their personal finances through a very unsettled time. What has become a much more accessible field is the pre-seed market, because I have seen a number of pre-seed investors who, out of their commitment to the ecosystem, have said it is so important for us to keep funding companies, and so we will. And some of them have held new pitch competitions they've never done before. Some of them have committed to, we will invest in 10 companies in the next 30 days, right, which is an incredibly rapid sales cycle for a pre-seed fund. Yeah. And that's been an incredible and exciting thing to see happen. Maybe sometimes there's this perception that venture capital is this inaccessible big black box that is so different from the founder experience, but they're founders too, and they're founders in a position to be able to help other founders. And because founders love helping people, that's often why they start what they're doing. You see them coming out in force and really making that happen. So we are now pushing very hard on our pre-seed fund and are hoping to close that out within the next couple of months, because it's that's shown up as an outstanding opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great to hear, Erin. Last question I want to just cover with you. If you could quickly just mention one thing of how you grew as a leader, what did you learn during this time? The biggest, most valuable lesson learned, what would that be?
You need like a bow.
Yes, a
What
bow.
what can we put? I know. I was like, yeah, okay. No, I know this part of the podcast. What's the bow? Something that we've taken away, that I've taken away, that has been very important through this is nothing that we are doing now does not set us up for success going forward. And nothing we are doing now erases what we did up until this point. We have learned a huge amount in the last 6 months about how to interact with our users, how to interact with our employees, how to support mental health, how to have grace and mercy, how to make strong decisions and quick pivots and roll out new business opportunities, and how to stay on top of those. That's incredible learning that we'll take out to the other side. Any growth that we're able to experience during this time we'll take out to the other side. New business development we've done, we take out to the other side. And then we just add back in everything that we had been doing before COVID started. And the hope and idea would be we come out the other side twice the company that we were when we started, or more. 10 times the company we were when we started.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of things that each of us are losing during this time, both personally and professionally, that we cannot change, that we cannot get back, that we can't do anything about not being able to have. But there are also incredible things that we have as opportunities that we never would have had before. We have this market now where the need for support for working parents, the need for affordable childcare, there's no plausible deniability that those things are urgent needs. There's no plausible deniability that the working parent is not someone who deserves support in the workplace. We are finding a new sense of community where mutual dependency on one another is something that is valued, where we are learning that while self-sufficiency is a beautiful thing, being able to have reliance on those around you in a healthy way is equally beautiful. That's an incredible thing. And for us as a culture and for all of us as individuals, I hope that's something that sticks and that we can all keep. And we all come out 10 times the people that we were when we started.
Looking for those silver linings in this time is so important. And just believing in that the fight will make you stronger and come out ahead. And just have to look at this as an opportunity for the future. Well, thank you so much, Erin, for all of your great advice on how you're leading during these uncertain times. It's truly been inspirational. So thank you for sharing with us your story.
Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share it.
Next up, I have Afifa Siddiqui, who we did an episode with previously on her entrepreneurial journey, starting up 3 businesses in the talent management industry in Canada. Afifa is known to be an early adopter and ahead of the curve on future of work trends, so I brought her in to ask her about her leadership journey through COVID-19 times. Good to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you too.
COVID has changed the way we work for better or worse. And Afifa, your firm is familiar with the area of remote work, and from your entrepreneurial perspective, how should businesses be thinking now in order to be effective in this new environment?
Entrepreneurs will go where the problems are. And, for example, right now, everybody has to hire remote workers, people who are comfortable working like this, but also being efficient. So that means you also need now people with certain qualities. So it's no longer as much about the industry as it is about getting people with the right qualities to be able to be effective in these environments. And then, how do you deal with the management of all these people, changing all your systems? Those people too are going to now be in demand. And these are things and trends that I'm starting to track, because I think that if I focus on that, the recruiting end of our practice will also pick up.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So you mentioned there's kind of new qualities that businesses need to be aware of in candidates that will be working remotely. If there's entrepreneurs and executives on this who listen to this show and they were to hire for those qualities, what kind of qualities would you recommend they consider or look for? And we know obviously that's dependent on each specific business, but if you had to think more broadly about those qualities, what would those be?
So I would put communications right at the top of that list. I would always almost say that it's the first and second quality to look for. And part of that is because now we have to communicate in so many different ways. Right now we're on a video chat. We have that sort of similar experience to being in the same room. But I run my entire practice on audio. I don't even like having the video on because it forces us to then communicate that much better. Another thing I'm seeing is written communications have to be upgraded in so many cases. So communication, both oral and written, in order to keep everybody on the same page. Organizational skills, that would be another really important thing. So managers, in at least in my businesses, our managers literally define out a person's role. So they actually know what a person's daily tasks are and then put metrics to how those are delivered. And I'm not talking about, like for example, in a call center, your metrics are you have this many calls, you have this many, how you track your successes by setting what this many interviews and this many, closing deals. I'm not necessarily those are important too. I'm speaking more about here is in this month we have to accomplish these three big things. So being able to manage and lay out at that level, and this is great for businesses. So I'm also going to predict something that businesses who handle their remote their remote staff, they're probably going to also see an increase in productivity, increase in effectiveness, how they go to market, because they'll be forced to tighten up their metrics and then hire those people that can actually, deliver those metrics. So that's why I talk about qualities. And it also, I'm hoping it will have an effect on these we're talking now in it's not just in the US, it's global, these systemic biases. This hiring of people who look and sound just like me, it doesn't always help the success of a business, because you narrow your hiring pools. Now you should literally hire on these qualities. I mean, some of our best hires, like I support a program for autistic people, and some of these people are brilliant. There's always a home. It's about finding the right task and then managing for it. I mean, they're not the best communicators, but they really do stay focused depending on the role you have to fill. Now, this is coming from all my learnings now from the recruiting in the HR space. And one other thing that I think is happening, and this is great, HR has not historically had a seat at the C-suite or the board level. And I really have always advocated that should change. So HR should always have a seat at the table. And now with so many people working remote, your HR people really have to help guide this whole shift. And they've been doing that. And they're also sort of, let's call them the unsung heroes. I don't know if, our HR will agree, but I see them as the unsung heroes of so many successes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny though, because HR is all about managing talent or people assets, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And those people are really the most important part of an organization. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have IP, and all the intellectual property, and you
Yeah.
have maybe some cool products that are different, but it's really the people that are so critical to your business. And
Yeah.
it seems kind of funny that they wouldn't have had a seat at the table for so long, the HR folks who manage that talent. So that's interesting. I'm glad it's changed since then. So your third business, CPS, seems like it's kind of ahead of the curve. And when COVID hit, your business just started growing. Can you tell the audience kind of how you were able to foresee that the future of work is going to be about remote working?
So I've been looking at this for over a decade, remote work. And, there's lots of examples, good examples of companies that have been doing this. They've been remote working, hiring contractors. You see examples of this in other countries. In the US as well, Canada. We're not as far along, I think, as say Europe. And they they're often trying things ahead of us. I'm not always sure why, because there's so much innovation capability here. We're a lot more similar in Canada and the US than we are to the rest of the planet. But remote working is something that's been around for decades, and technology is what's been driving it. It's our ability to be able to work with each other, uh, you know like this, collaborate in real time. And before, if we didn't have all these technologies, companies even now would be trying to get back to their offices. But because we have now the Zooms, the Teams, the Google suites, it allows us to actually make this shift faster. And again, I do like to early adopt tech. And my team hates this because I'm always bringing in, hey, let's try this, let's use this. When VoIP technology first came on, I swear my team was ready to fire me, because I literally got us moved on to VoIP, stupidly dropped our phone systems, and literally shut us down for 2 weeks because the tech didn't work.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I was lucky that I was already the CEO, because I would
Yes.
have lost my job.
Oh, I'm sure they'll
That's
forgive you.
that's another example of failure, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But it's being able to look at a trend and look far. This is something I do all the time, and I do believe it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs do, because if you can see something coming at you, you should be starting to solve it. Because the problem I have, very likely other people have the same problem.
Mm-hmm.
So even when we build our tech, it's not always, yes, it's to solve our needs first, the needs of the people we serve, but these same problems exist, and they can be used to help others. So our service right now is doing well because we were already working with remote workers. We were helping them get situated. Like, our workers are all Canadian, working for non-Canadian companies. And the reason that right now it's a big deal, like for example in the US, all the H-1B workers right now, they're either being expelled, they're not being renewed, but companies cannot just lose these people. They're knowledge workers that have to have a place to work from, and Canada is just the right choice.
Mm-hmm.
They could go elsewhere or back to their countries, but that's not the answer.
Yeah.
And we're in the same time zones, we have the same type of work culture, we communicate, we're very polite people. So Americans love working with
You
Canadians.
guys are very polite.
Yeah, we teach people how to line up properly. So being in that remote space helped us, and I was already getting ready to have my own team be fully remote. They were very excited about it, but literally we went home on Thursday, and everybody was in full swing, by Monday, because our government gave us the mandate that your office is closed, no one's going in.
Right. Mhm.
We really had experience with it, and but I'm also pleasantly surprised how quickly most companies and people have adapted. And, because it's good. On the one hand, you do have to start setting boundaries, and then you have to get space. I mean, we adjusted our policies, and now we help other companies do that.
Mhm.
We help them write their policies anew. How do we manage all these people better, and then keep our productivity up?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's so much more to it than just, okay, make sure you have internet connection and you
Hmm.
can log into Zoom. There's really, you have to think about all the processes and policies that go along
Yeah.
with their work to make them look at every single task and making sure, can they do this from home? And then what's the best way to do it from home? Is it like before, or just do we need to change something, or do we even need that task at all
Yeah.
anymore?
Now that's a really interesting thing you just said, because, if you're in the office, you're kind of stuck in a paradigm. It's hard to look at changing something when you're actually in it. It's like that saying, can't see the forest because, in the trees, that
Yes.
type of thing.
Mhm.
So I actually think this is a plus for businesses if they would actually look at it that way. There are
Yeah.
silver linings everywhere you look.
Mhm. Yeah, there truly are. And I think you're right. Having that change of environment will help people give a fresh perspective and kind of help
Hmm.
them, I guess, jump out of their shoes and look over to see what's really going on. And then you realize, oh, we didn't really need to be doing that. That was just a
Yeah.
matter of habit.
Yeah, businesses really serve their end clients. We can be asking, what else do you guys need? How else can we be of service? And a lot of businesses if they can make that shift, they can come out of this stronger. And I know I'm speaking in generalization here, but as an entrepreneur, that's how I'm choosing to look at it, because I can now see, hey, I could add this revenue stream or that service or help this group so much better. So
Mhm.
it's a kind of a blessing in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, it
But,
is. It
but I
is.
do know other industries are definitely hurting, and it's also then incumbent on us to go and spend help, say, restaurants and such by going out for meals and bringing takeout back.
Yeah. I just want to ask if there's anything else that you would have to say about leading through uncertain times. We talked about being able to look for different qualities in talent during this time, helping employees transition to remote work and changing those processes and policies to go along with it. But I want to take a look at yourself in the role as CEO, and how is it that you have pivoted as a leader in this new context of COVID?
I feel that I'm doing a better job actually as a CEO in these times, because I actually again put my people first. What is it that they need? They need to not work 24/7. So setting up my an outline of here's what I expect from each team. I actually, as part of my new role, I was doing this already, but now I put so much more structure around myself because I want to role model it for them. So I start my day with, and then because people know my schedule and they need something, they know how to get a hold of me and the channels to get a hold of me. So I'm actually finding I'm a lot more effective, and I'm role modeling it. So then my team leads and the other managers are actually also doing a better job. But I have that quality. And in that sense, where I was saying, I don't necessarily hire who looks and sounds like me. If for that I do, it's the quality that should lead. And if I can organize myself, my call at my first scrum 8, then at 8:30, then at 9, and then role model. How do you keep these tight?
Uh-huh.
So as a CEO, I actually am doing a lot of role modeling to make sure that people lead their groups. I'm also teaching them how to be more effective with their groups,
Mhm.
because communicating, especially like the nuances of payroll data, on the one hand, it's all very, you can share it in spreadsheets, but it's not. It's payroll. So if somebody doesn't get paid properly or on time, there's mistakes, you know, that back office person is going to get inundated with very frustrated, irate, cussy people. And you can't blame them.
Yes.
So, making sure that I am that way myself, that we also then provide the training, and then making sure that nobody is overworked and overwhelmed, because that was already happening too. I can't let my team get so stressed that they're ineffective, that they're sick. And then, right now uh, I'm actually forcing people to take days off. So this is another problem that our clients also are getting notes from us. Hey, you're halfway through the year, start planning those vacation times, even if they're all staycations,
Mm-hmm.
So literally, if they're not taking their time, I am assigning them days to take off, because that's really important, right? It's like we have to be mentally and physically capable. All the Scandinavian countries, they already had 12-week vacation. Like, it's unheard of in North America. What do you do with 12 weeks? But they had these, and they found that people weren't taking advantage because they had the freedom. They knew that they could. But there's also, before you take vacation, you need to make sure you're doing your job. So if you have the outline of, here's what I'm accountable for, what I'm responsible for, most people I think are responsible that way. And if they're not, they shouldn't be on my team. But I do believe that this is something that's long been coming, just as remote work, having that people call it that work-life balance. I don't like that term, because yes, you have to have a balanced life, but it's work is as important, in life as as your life. I don't know if that makes sense, but if I didn't have work, like, I always see myself doing something, whether it's 3 hours a day or 8 hours a day, my mind needs to be busy. And most people, I believe, are like that.
Yes. Well, thank you, Afifa, for coming back onto the pod and sharing with us your COVID leadership story.
Thank you, Rebecca.
And now let's move on to our third leader, Elena Agaragimova from Dubai. Elena is the managing partner of Basarn, and we had brought her on to an episode earlier to talk about the business and future of education. COVID-19 has certainly created a push in the professional development and reskilling space, with workers now having more time to actually spend on these critical activities that are going to be helping shape our new future. Elena, I want to understand, what kind of recommendations do you have on leading as a founder through COVID? And more specifically, what do your interactions with your employees look like? How are you managing that? And what do your interactions with your customers look like?
I think the word I would use to describe the way we're working with our team and clients is just empathy. Empathizing to understand that everybody's dealing with this in a different way. And it's easier said than done, I'll be honest. Between my business partner and I, we have to make time to check in with ourselves and our team, and to just kind of say, have we talked to this person? How are they doing? Because we're constantly just going, and that's our nature. Other people that work with us, they don't necessarily function the same way. So I think it's just taking a moment and checking in with your team members to understand that, everybody's dealing with different things, and it's not even just about the sort of mental impact, but it's also about the fact that when we were on lockdown, right? So people working from home, and it's not that it's a normal work from home. In our company, you can work from anywhere you wish, right? But it's the fact that they had to then be working from home. Their kids are working from home as well. They're studying from home, their spouses. There's a lot of pressure, and some people perhaps are dealing with the health issues as well, though there are loved ones. So I think just emphasizing with our team, number one, with our clients, understanding that it's very uncertain times. I mean, layoffs are happening right and left. Being there to sort of support them. So in many cases, we're just offering our support. We're offering our services. We say, listen, let's discuss business later. How can we support you in this time? this is the time to add value. This is not the time to look at, kind of benefiting from the situation. I mean, there are opportunities, don't get me wrong, but again, emphasizing with people and understanding, how can you best support them now, and then grow through this together, and to come out in a better place altogether.
That seems like a really great way, Elena, to kind of lead through COVID, is just using empathy and diving into that part of ourselves as a human to interact with our customers and employees, just checking in on everyone to make sure that everyone's doing okay and asking how you can support. It seems like a really great approach to be leading during these uncertain times while everyone's kind of scrambling and figuring out what happens next. And yeah, just kind of sticking together, like elbow to elbow is important, because yeah, when we stick together, we will get through it stronger. Thank you so much, Elena, for coming back onto the pod and sharing with us how you're leading through COVID.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to our last leader, we learned so much from talking to Sean Bisceglia in one of our previous episodes about innovation and his playbook on business, that we wanted to pick his brain on how he is leading during the 2020 pandemic and his perspective on the future of work. As a quick refresher, Sean is currently heading Curion as CEO, a consumer goods testing firm. But he is also an entrepreneur that has been full circle, founding and exiting 4 businesses. Welcome back, Sean. As I understand it, you sit on a few advisory boards. How are you advising your startups through COVID-19 times, and how do you help them prepare for uncertainty?
Yeah, it's a great question. Certainly there's not been times like this. And it's not only just the boards I sit on, it's my own company. And really, my view is the playbook, because it's so uncertain, times, it's limited, and you can't rely solely on that, because, it's just, we've never been through this probably as a society, or those that have are not living right now. So, I just a few basic tenets. One is you have to be open-minded. You don't know where the solutions are coming from. You don't know for your own business, not for the world, but for your own business. 2, you have to be compassionate for your employees. They're struggling, and you have to make sure that you have that compassion and empathy for them. 3, if you are doing well, our view is give back. There's 30-some million Americans unemployed. We never thought we'd see this. For instance, we give back 1% of our sales every month to Feed America, and we also make a $25 donation to anybody that attends our webinar. But this is the time, I think, for basics of leadership, but it's also basics of being humble and humility, of that you're going to have to learn, and you have to be open-minded, because you can't be scared. You can't be worried and anxiety ridden, but you don't know where your business is going to go. And it's the last point we talked about a little bit. Of all times to work on your business versus in your business, now is the time, because you have to get ready for the future, and different ideas and different innovation.
In times like these, just staying in touch with that human side, really putting yourself in the shoes of your employees, how they're feeling, of your customers and those in needs, is really important. And being humble and having that humility really, really helps with that. And if I can add gratefulness as well, helps keep that mindset positive and open, so that you are able to give back. I just want to take a step out of the episode for a moment and share an afterthought I had after we had recorded this podcast. I think Sean was right in that managing the chaos by coming back to the cornerstones of leadership seems like a great starting point. And there's 4 key ways in which you can do that. And Sean will share a story in a moment that demonstrates these. But first, building character. You can do this by showing your humility and compassion. Secondly, listening and building a new vision that represents your values and principles. Third, building trust by showing your integrity. And lastly, being open-minded and courageous enough to be innovative and take risks. And then learning from your failures and moving forward. Now back to the episode.
So, speaking of courage or leadership and being open-minded, just a real quick story. We thought trying to figure out why our clients weren't continuing with product testing. We thought it was legal. We thought they were concerned about the consumers. We thought that the product wasn't available in the plants. So we came up with all these answers. We came up with knocking down all the barriers and getting everybody comfortable. And it wasn't until we stopped and listened to our clients and our customer counsel that we found the real reason. What they were concerned about was none of those as much. What they were concerned about was validity of the research. If you're bringing people in to test food during a COVID pandemic, what's their frame of mind to give you real input? What's the frame of mind to say that research is valid? And if you can help us solve that, carry on, we can get back to work. We can get back into testing. We didn't know that. We maybe weren't listening well, and we started listening and we started drawing it out, and we made some changes. So we've been this has happened in the last 48 hours. It's been like really effective to kind of move that pendulum back to getting our facilities and our people reopened.
Yeah, definitely in these times of uncertainty, it feels like it would be so easy to withdraw, but as you just proven, and when you put yourself out there and just start navigating the space. So what if you don't know, where the next stepping stone is, so to speak, just to not be afraid, be bold, and go following those, what we talked about earlier, the changing consumers, just following those consumers. They'll lead the way into that next space that you need to be in. I think that's a really great piece of advice for handling this situation. And another thing we're seeing too with this COVID-19 times is a lot more of the remote working. People are learning to work in a different way, communicating differently, collaborating differently. And I just want to kind of dive into how you envision this future of work, where after COVID-19, where do you think this is all going to go in terms of the way that we work in our lifestyle, Sean?
Great question. It's on top of, I think, everybody's mind. So I think to break it down first in attitudinal behavior. And what I mean by that is the first thing to do is make sure everybody's safe, right? You have to create an environment that they feel safe coming back to. They feel it's the protocols, it's clean, they're not going to get infected. There's all these things that we're all going through as businesses to bring the staff back together. But you have to make them feel safe. You can't force them to come back. I do hope the government or the states pass something where they indemnify the companies, because it's really hard to prove where you might get this virus. So let's say you get everybody, safe around that. The next question is, some are going to come back, and sometimes we may not be coming back and working together. The problem there isn't, yes, we all know not being face-to-face, the collaboration, there's lots of tools around that. We all can adapt. What I think the challenge is for companies is to find that outlet and harness ingenuity. Like, to me, that's the fear of being very virtual. Yeah, we can have great video chats and Zoom and so forth, but and we can still have collaboration, don't get me wrong, but the ingenuity where that idea comes from, I think harnessing that is going to be really important in the future. And I think we need to figure that out. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge that I think companies are going to face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's navigating this together, and I think that taking on that entrepreneurial mindset of don't be afraid to fail and then fail fast, finding that ingenuity. So what if you fail, but as long as you latch on, you're going to be one step closer, even after a fail or two, to where you need to be. Well, thanks so much, Sean, for coming back onto the pod and sharing with us how you're moving your business ahead during these uncertain times. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot on this episode today.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining our COVID episode on leading through uncertain times. Through these 4 leaders, I hope you found inspiration on how you can lead forward this new future. Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to download the next episode so you can listen to it on your next commute or trip. You can access more great insights and other goodies on our website at launchitspot.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there, which will notify you when we post the new goods. And of course, we always appreciate shares and likes by our listeners. Did you know that you can be featured on Launch? We are always looking for interesting people who are striving to become better leaders, as well as subject matter experts in any of our content categories listed in our nav bar. Believe it or not, your story can inspire so many people. All you have to do is quickly apply on our website and we'll be in touch. Now, how are you going to lead the world?